listening to www.integralnaked.org.
So this is what I call a developmental milestone, when for the first time, rather than accepting what culture and your family and everybody else has given you as givens, this is how the world works, you're starting to doubt, you're starting to wonder about, you're starting to realize, well, there are sometimes such different interpretations. That's just strange. How can that be? And myself, in some situations, I'm like that. In other situations, I'm a not different person. Who am I really? And the capacity to ask those questions and to go inside is a new capacity, rather than going outside. Now we're at that. Remember the first diagram I had was this arch with the left side and the right side. Now we're going over to the other side, where it's no longer so important to know. What do I know? How can I define it? What are the variables? But what do I understand? How come I make sense of things this way and not another way? So there's a turn inwards and there's a turn towards questioning and taking apart what previously was taken for granted or as a given. And a lot of that came together also with the physics of the very large astronomy and with the physics of the very small quantum physics. But what happened there for those who are scientists when we started to explore those areas in physics? Yes?
The presence of the observer influences the action of the observed.
That was measured and seen, yes. There was also seen things, if you touch this, typical Newtonian physics, touch your chair, just something hard. Is this hard? What's this? On that level, on our ordinary central level, this is hard, but when you go to the atomic level, what do we have? Enormous amounts of way more space than the electron, anything solid in there. So that also popped our sort of reliance on what the objectivity that was so highly praised in the conventional traditional science, this doubt that there is actually ever objectivity. And it's not that it is not true, and here comes in with the valuable contributions of Ken's as well. It's not that the old one is not true. What we can say it is true for a specific case. It's limited, it's partially true. Newtonian physics still works. You can do the experiments with rolling a ball down an incline every single time and get the same result. Still counts, still true, but it's not the whole truth. And the shift from conventional to post-conventional is that realization. The next stage, and this is the visual representation of the diagram of it, is the person can again take another step away and now look at the whole self system. The way I was when I was a child, the way I am now, and I can imagine the way I will be in the future. And because I can do that, and I can also realize in some ways that I'm so many different people. And there is often a suffering included for what we call the individualist stage, in the sense of not knowing anymore what's correct, and knowing there may be never a way out how I can determine that, and that can be very unsettling. And there are basically two solutions to that, and spiral dynamics looks at one of them. It's the green, the reaching out to others, because I realize that my truth is just my truth, my opinion. Yours, your voice and your opinion is just as important, and we have to listen to everybody. in ego development, when we look at this, has a different form, namely a further turning inward and a celebration of the me. I am the way I am. I'm just going to enjoy. That's the only reality I know is my own being. What I experience, that I can rely on. Nothing else holds. So that has a different flavor. It is not necessarily so communal, but on the contrary, very individualistic. And to me, again, like the self-protective and the opportunist, it's just two sides of the same place, cognitive place. And in the best of all senses, there's a real celebration of one's uniqueness. And when you look at the test, again, I will actually have you look at some sentences. You will see there, for the first time, you have a sense, this is a unique person. I may know this person because they're self-revealing. They're celebrating their uniqueness. Whereas if you look at sentences from the earlier stages, it's more like a type. I can't say that much about the person as an individual. I can say, they're an achiever, but I don't know who they are individually. Here this starts, and the later the stage, the more you have the sense of, even just reading a few sentences, this is a person, a coherent, unique person that reveals him or herself to you. And of course, because truth cannot be found, it's always a pendulum. First, the truth absolutely can be found. We just don't, maybe not yet. We just need the right tools. We need the right methods. Here, the sense is, oh my God, there is really no place to stand on. And in sort of the university setting, the postmodernism, if you've heard of that, is precisely that position. There is no way, no place to stand for that's any better than any other. So the energy is often in just tearing down whatever has been created, because we know those boundaries are artificial. So let's deconstruct everything. And the sadness of that position is, it doesn't understand its own contradiction, because if I claim there is no place to stand on, what is that? That is in itself a stance, a place I take. And interestingly enough, that is usually something that's one of the limits of the postmodern mind, that it does not recognize that self-contradiction. And in sort of the negative outcome, you can be an individualist and celebrate your uniqueness and say, I'm just going, what's the expression in English, following my own drummer, and be totally energized and happy about that and not care about the conventions and all of that. Or in a sadder case, you can become cynical or even nihilistic. And every stage has its different expressions and its range of whether it's a positive expression of it or more negative. And I wouldn't even say it's necessarily pathological. It's just the way the person can survive. The map they have can be that cynicism is what keeps me alive or keeps me being able to stand this total uncertainty within myself. But there is confusion, and there's books about that, feeling like you're a tribe. There are so many voices in you, and you can use all of them. That can be energizing or can be confusing, either way. Yes?
You have early vision logic at the bottom of that.
Yes.
Could you explain that, please?
It is when you just do a parallel to Ken's theory. This stage corresponds to his early vision logic. And actually that brings me to another point that's not on the slides. What is also new, A, you turn inward, and B, you get away from this rigid boundary in terms of information. The achiever is very much rationally oriented. It has to make sense, you have to be able to prove it. Whereas with this turning inward, suddenly other sources of information become important again. Intuition, dreams. My body gives me feedback. all of that can now also be taken as information towards whatever action I'm going to take, not just the rational deliberation, not just what makes sense, but also how I feel, my felt sense of things or another person. And it allows for much greater freedom and much greater creativity. It gets released at this point again in a new way, because those constraints have been lifted.
You are listening to www.integralnaked.org.